Morning, folks. Again, this is my third live of this week, and I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to wait until I know that we are actually live on LinkedIn before I bring Fiona Scott on. I'll wait for LinkedIn to tell me that that's actually happening. And until then, I'll tell you what, let me put myself on screen. And then you can see that I am actually here. Morning. It's lovely to see all of you. I'll bring Fiona Scott on in a second when LinkedIn tells me that this. I always get a bit panicky until LinkedIn actually tells me it's working. If I'm looking down at the screen, there you go. It's obviously working because I can hear a 2 or 3 second delayed version of myself, which I've remembered to turn off. If I'm looking down and not looking up at you, it's because I'm just doing a couple of things down here to make everything work and make sure that it's all happening, which it is. There we go. So yeah, this morning I'm going to be talking to Fiona Scott, who I've known for ages. Fiona's going to be talking about powerful PR planning for 2023. But I also know, because of all of the times that I've talked to Fiona over the years, that anything that she says about 2023 is going to be relevant for stuff that you can start doing right now. I know that Fiona's got at least one event coming up where you can work with her, so we'll talk about that as well. Good morning. I've got people saying it's working. I'll tell you what, that's the bit which I forgot to do. So let's do that. So Stephen Bell, thank you very much. I can see that it's working. And the wonderful Adrian Chase. Your name's come up in conversations a couple of times this week, Adrian. So good morning to you as well. But live and direct from Swindon, I'm going to bring Fiona on screen. There you go. Morning, Fiona. Just lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you, Steph. Lovely to not see everybody else, but to hear them. And hi, Adrian. I hope you're okay. Haven't seen you for ages.
No, I was just saying that someone else was talking about the FSB down in that part of the world, and Adrian's name came up. So for the benefit of the people who don't know you as well as I do, just tell the folks a little bit about what it is that you actually do, Fiona.
Okay, so I've been a journalist for 34 years. I started in local papers and then did a bit of radio, hospital radio mainly. Then I went into television. I was made redundant 15 years ago last year, and I started my own business agency based upon journalistic principles. I am biased because I'm a journalist, but I believe the best PR people do have a journalistic background. And are real storytellers. And frankly, I never imagined my life would be like this, but I absolutely love it. I love it today as much as I'd say the first month in, because the first month of starting your business is really scary because you think, oh my gosh, will anyone ever buy anything from me? You have this real thing that happens. But once I got over myself and started to get on with the job, I've just had a ball.
Well, it looks like you're having a ball. I'm aware of some of the people that you're working with in the background and am loving their journey as well and seeing that the work you're doing with them. If we start with the basics, before talking about powerful planning for 2023, for most of the types of business owners that you and I are in touch with, what does PR actually mean to them? What's the relevance of it to small businesses?
Right, okay. Most people don't understand what PR actually is.
That's why I asked.
They'll meet someone like me, that what they'll do is they'll think, oh, journalist, it's all about publicity in the media. And of course, that it is to an extent because that is what my skill set is. But PR is public relations. So it's actually about all the places you can and need to be visible and visible appropriately so that people learn about you and your business. And it's those two things, you and your business. So we will have a conversation about whether they understand what PR is, what they are already doing that they didn't realize was PR. Because in my world, public relations is every aspect of marketing. And a good PR person will recognize every aspect. They might not be a specialist in it. I mean, the amount of times I speak to a business owner and I say, I'm sorry, you're not ready for publicity because your website's terrible. You've got absolutely no following on social media. You don't have any photographs. And I'll say, now you can give me a sum of money to make that happen for you, or you can go off and do that first. But actually, when you want to engage with the media, those assets need to be in place, because how do you expect the media to be confident in working with you if you have not recognized some of these basics of public relations that you need, and ask yourself this: where are the successful invisible businesses? Because there aren't many. In 15 years, I have dealt with one business where I actually had to say, I'm really sorry, I can't actually work with you. And the reason for that was their main customer was the Ministry of Defence. They did a lot of security, and everything they did was under an NDA. They couldn't talk about it. And therefore, they gave me minimal stories that I could tell. And I thought, authentically and ethically, I couldn't work with them. They would have to do other stuff. But I did warn them, having all your eggs in one basket, albeit a very big basket, is a really dangerous place to be in business.
I've I've done a speaking gig, which was quite a for me quite a high profile speaking gig, but I wasn't allowed to put photos or anything like that out there anywhere at all, or even say where I was working on that day, because they were linked to that sort of government agency as well. So I wasn't allowed to talk about who worked there or anything like that. So I can sort of see that from the point of view of those. When I when I was an estate agent, you know that I was an estate agent for a long time. I sort of had this concept of being seen everywhere. So this was pre-social media, and pretty much most of my career was pre the internet. So what I tried to do was, as well as our newspaper advertising, I tried to get editorial. I tried to get in front of the local radio stations if they wanted a quote about house prices and that sort of thing. Is that the sort of thing that you're talking about? People being seen in as many places as possible?
Yeah, yeah, because a good PR, good marketing is a layered approach. It is not a linear thing. I often try and explain this, particularly to people that are very process driven. They're very detailed. What they'll think is, well, what's the return on investment of that investment in that? Well, actually, there's a saying in marketing, which is 50% of advertising works. I just don't know what 50%, which 50%. And it's true. You know, you put a plug in a wall, you turn a switch, and the light comes on. But it's not like that with marketing. You know, it's not one activity, it's 100 activities that create a cumulative effect where you're on the tip of the tongue. So it's really hard to track this stuff. You can track that you've had. I had a post popped up from 10 months ago on LinkedIn that 15,000 people have now looked at and commented. That was 10 months ago. You know, when it actually came out, probably 500 people looked at it. But over those 10 months, it's been working away for me. So it was worth that investment of time. So people need to understand that the only way to truly measure marketing and PR is to do nothing. Do nothing, be nowhere, and see what actually happens to your business then. That's no networking, no social media, no website, nothing at all. Just sit in your office in your little bubble and see what happens to your business. Because all of us have to do PR of one kind or another. That doesn't mean working with someone like me all the time, but you can't be an invisible, visible, successful business.
It won't surprise you to know that I would completely agree with you. I know I come at it from the networking and social media point of view, and I love our conversations because we talk about the same concepts. You've just got a ton of science and stuff that you know how to do with people outside of my little world of networking. For those people who are just joining us, and it's lovely to see we've got people joining us this morning, actually quite a number of people joining us. Do pop your comments below if you've got any questions about PR, if you've got any questions about how Fiona works, if you've got any questions about what PR means, pop them in the comments below. We will bring them up on screen, just like I'm doing there, and try and answer them live. So what can small businesses do if they've got the basics right? They've got a website there, they've got a social media presence there. What can they start to do, Fiona? What tips would you give to people?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd say there's a load of ways of marketing yourself, isn't there? There's a load of ways of PRing yourself. So it always is helpful to have a plan and a goal and be really clear what that is. And I know what people are thinking, oh my gosh, I hate it when someone asks that, and what's a 5-year plan? So I'll tell you what, when I started out, my plan or my goal was to earn my corporate salary, get to a position to earn my corporate salary with enough money to fund my mobile phone, my laptop, and my car. Okay, that was it. So if I could get to a turnover of 2.5 grand a month, I would achieve that. And I didn't think of it as a goal at the time. I thought of it as that's where I need to get to. Because once you've got that goal, you can start to think, right, what parts of PR and marketing can I do? Do I want to do? Can I afford to do? Because it's always time or money or a mixture of both. There's no way around that. There's no way around that. For me, what it was absolutely networking, getting out and about. I'm a social animal. I'm an extrovert. I need to be around people. So that was about my personality, but also years of experience of knowing when you talk to people, they share their stories. So meeting them face to face, and the story they share might not be the story you're expecting, or it may be multiple stories. So networking was important. Social media back in 2008 was not where it was then, but I could see the power of it even before that. I could see that social networking was, because that's what it is, social networking was going to be really, really powerful. And we've got someone listening in today, the team from Grey Skits, to check them out on TikTok, and you will see what I mean by powerful. I believe their following's around 2 million at the moment. They can tell you far more about TikTok than I can. But at that time for me, it was Facebook, and LinkedIn was kind of growing. The big one for me was Twitter. And I focused heavily on Twitter. It was quick, it was easy. I could work out how to build an audience. So maybe choose 2 or 3 things that you're going to focus on and build it, and don't be in it for the long term. This isn't, I'm going to get results next week or next month. This is, I'm going to build and results will come over time. And the other key thing is know when you're having conversations, when is the right time to sell to them or to direct them to a place where they can buy from you. And that is not, oh, yes, I've connected with you. Here's a direct message selling my stuff to you. It is not that. It is when you start talking about your workshop, or you have to have the nous to show people the till and be unafraid to ask for the money at the right time. And a lot of this is gut feeling. It's give me a drum roll there. I love
You
that.
did. You got a drum roll. I'll tell you why you got a drum roll, because I'm just you've shouted out the people at Grey Skits, and if you can see me looking down, I was just trying to bring them up on screen, and I clicked the wrong button. I clicked the wrong
That's
button.
okay. I'll take a drum roll anytime.
Before you start speaking again, let's do this.
Yeah.
And you've just mentioned Grey Skits, haven't you? I'm taking
Yeah,
it because I was just trying to find them there. Are those the folks that you're talking about?
yeah. I
2
mean,
million followers?
I only met these guys yesterday. They'll tell you that through a mutual connection, and I'll be following them on TikTok today. So look out for me, guys. But
There
it's
you go, Grey
astonishing.
Skits. Glad that you're here. You got a shout out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, look at them. And these are young people, and that's another thing. If you are going to meet 3 million on both our accounts, well, brilliant, brilliant, guys. What can you say to that? What I will say to you, Grey Skits, I hope you've sent a press release to your local press where you're physically based, because that in itself is a story. But it's about trying things for a while, and then when they start to work, what can you layer in as an extra thing? It's never about doing less. It's about doing more, depending on your goals. And then I reached my goal, probably took me 2 or 3 years. And then I thought, oh, what now? Do I want more? Or am I happy where I am? Do I maintain? I always wanted more. That was the truth. But so goals, what things you want to do, and then work out whether, if you want to talk to someone like me, is publicity part of that? And what will the value of that be to me? Because the thing about working with somebody like me, you can't just wind Fiona up and she goes off and does it and you have no time with me. You have to work with me because I can't be you. So I actually involve more of your time, not less. And I want to work with people who get it, who really get it, and who understand the value of the media today, and the value of working with journalists today, and the value of the audience that they can reach. And I'm very well connected in that space, but it's not for everyone. I do have businesses I work with where I say, you're not ready for publicity yet. Let's work on these things in year one. with a view to layering that in later. And that might be because they've got quite a small budget and there's other basic building blocks we need first. Does that answer your question? I feel like I'm waffling now, Steph.
No, you're not. Do you know what? I'm going to tell you this honestly. I'll give us another drum roll in a second because I thought that was hilarious. But I was speaking to Sharon over breakfast this morning, my wife, and I said the great thing about Fiona is that she's always giving value when she's talking. So I'm just going to let her talk because it's really really valuable to people. Grey Skit's got a lovely editorial in their local town mag. So there you
Brilliant.
go. Yeah, I'm pleased to shout you out, Grey Skits, by the way. I am talking this morning to Fiona Scott. If you're not following Fiona already, that's where you will find her. I've brought her LinkedIn profile up on screen so that you can take a look at it. And make sure that you follow Fiona because she gives a load of advice and hints and tips. Fiona posts on LinkedIn all the time, giving just as much value as she's given this morning. So yeah, you did answer that question. I love the idea of having goals and then reverse engineering from those goals. In terms of you've just made the point to Grey Skits, you suggested that they put out a press release to their local newspaper about something that's happening. Is that something that normal folk can do? Just get in touch with their local paper and
Yeah.
and talk to them about stuff.
Yeah. Yes, and you have to remember when I was a journalist on a local paper in Swindon, we had about 25 journalists employed to cover Swindon with a population of 180,000. Today, we have a population in Swindon of 230,000. We have about 5 journalists. So what that actually means day to day is there will be certain tasks they have to do every day, check with the police, check with the courts. The things that are generally bad news stories, quite quirky, easy to get, they'll have to do that. They'll be instructed by their news editor to do that. Good news is much harder to find. And they haven't got the time these days to go out and about and spend, as I did. I used to have a patch of Swindon, a day a week. I would go out, I would meet the local councillors, maybe the local bobby on the beat, wander around to the shopkeepers, chat to people and find the stories in their patch. They don't have time for that anymore. Those days are gone. So by being proactive and contacting your local media, they're not going to run every story, do, but I would say that any organisation, any business should be able to send a press release, or if you don't want to use the press release, an email about what you're up to your local paper at least every couple of months, 6 times a year. So just to let you know, I've launched a new this, or if you are an influencer like Grey Skits, just to let you know, we've done this one film and it's reached 5 million people. It's, or I did one a couple of weeks ago with a client, a nutritional therapist, and we did 10 healthy ways to pack your kids' lunchbox as they go back to school. Why do we do that? She's been what she does. It's back to school. It's timely and it's topical. And I've never been something years, so most people work whether the local media will run it. But if they're really short of news in August, because August is silly season, folks, they're desperate for stuff. And it was run online in 3 different places. So I paid the bill for this month for me, and also she's now in conversation this month with a national journalist that we worked with a year ago, who wanted some information on something, and they're having that conversation between them. So your relationships with journalists is just like your relationships with your clients or anyone else. You build a relationship, and the ideal for me is I'm there as a go-between. We want to get to a position where those journalists feel confident about contacting you directly. And I'm in the background if they can't get hold of you, you're on holiday, or they need a picture, or they want a bio. And that stuff which takes up your time, I can do for you once we've established those relationships. So yes, absolutely. Local media, it could be a local parish pump magazine. It could be, you might have a local daily or weekly paper. But, the first tip is go out and buy the bloody publication first and have a look through and see what business stories they're running. Because you'll be surprised how many are there if you actually take the time to have a look. And online is hugely valuable now. Most online digital news services will have a very high domain authority on Google. So if you get a backlink or a story on there, that is only doing your own website and business good. So that there are double multiple benefits now of working with the media, and I'm talking about the modern media, or with influencers and bloggers who are in your space talking to your audience. That's how they start to make money. But if they're willing to do a shout out with you or take some product from you, one of my clients sent some of their products to an influencer on TikTok who's a leading unboxer. So literally, people sending boxes of product from hair dryers to women's clothes as a bloke to foodstuffs, and he will open it on TikTok. He'll put links for people to buy, and he will do these several times a week. And he lives in Gloucester. Who knew? So don't be afraid of the future. Don't be afraid of new things happening. Be excited, be curious, but also don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The older, more traditional stuff still works.
I here in Whitney, I'm talking to you from Whitney. We've got two local radio stations here, like Whitney. We've got Whitney Radio and Windrush Radio. No bias, love you both, but we've got those opportunities in Whitney. And for people who think that stuff like that is small, I've secured a speaking gig this morning for the third time with the same client, and that came from a local Facebook group. Where I didn't go in there and say, I'm a speaker, would you like to book me? I went into our local Facebook group and engaged, and particularly engaged with a ton of other businesses. And that's the same client has now booked me for the third time. So I was saying that everything that Fiona says absolutely works. The last time I spoke to Fiona, we took action on something that Fiona said, and we're talking to a national newspaper by later on in the day. We're getting a load of comments here that Grey Skits say, Fiona, it's so clear that you fully understand influencers and content creators. I'm tripping over my words. I'm still distracted by that drum roll. And Adrian, has realised that he now needs to harness the internet much more now. Since post lockdown, all his clients used to come through one-to-one networking. Adrian, on that, I've got several clients now that I've never met in real life and actually won't meet until late next year because of where they are, that have come through virtual networking all over the world, and a combination of taking Fiona's advice and making sure that when people look at me after networking events that they've got something to look at. I'm going to pop this back up on screen really quickly because for all of the people watching, if you're not following Fiona already, then you really should be. As you can see this morning, she talks a load of sense. Is it all right if we do a quick commercial break, Fiona? Because you've got an event coming up, haven't you? Which I'm going to pop up
Yeah,
on screen now.
yeah.
Powerful Planning for Powerful PR in 2023. I got it the wrong way around. Planning for Powerful PR in 2023. What are you going to be covering at the event? I think it's on November the 9th, and it's actually near here, isn't it? In
Yeah, yeah,
Cirencester.
yeah, that's right. It's for up to 20 business owners, but I'll run it with 10. And it's to get them to think about planning PR and looking for the stories in their business, or organisation, charity, or if they're a sole trader in their own lives, that they can actually pitch to the media in 2023. And also, not just that, this is the other thing, it'll be where they can hang out and engage with the national media in 2023. I believe strongly you should do both. You need to be both local, regional, national, and if appropriate to your business, international. And you have every opportunity to do that. So I'm going to work with them specifically. They'll work together in groups, probably pairs. We'll come up with stories and share stories. And if I really, really like a story, I might give them a national journalist to pitch to. But I'm very, very fussy about things like that.
I'm just going to pop us back on screen so that people can see us. And also the other reason I'm popping us back on screen is here's the link to Fiona's event, which I'm just going to pop in the comments. The link to the event, which we've just had up on screen, is right there. I know people overestimate how difficult it is to get national PR. I've just spotted this week a pie shop. I can't even remember where the pie shop was. I'm going to say Cornwall. But he got national PR by doing a here's the results of his 2022 survey of the most popular pies that go out of his shop. And it was great because it was really light-hearted, but the name of his shop is just mentioned all the way through it with photos of him holding pies, and that actually got national press. I mean, that sort of thing can happen to any sort of business if they do the right stuff, can't it?
Anyone at all. And if you stop thinking of it as the national press and more as people who are writing for the national press, you start to understand there is no reason anyone can't have national publicity if they're providing the right story at the right time. Because most national journalists now are freelance, they're business people just like you and me, freelance, not all, but most. And they are looking for stories. They're looking for things that are timely, topical, quirky, fun, or that fit an agenda. So if you choose 2 or 3 and you follow them, you are going to see them saying, I'm looking for a woman who, loves handbags, or I'm looking for a man that wears funky glasses or funky shirts. And you're going to know instantly if that's you. I mean, they don't give a monkeys whether you run a business or not. They want to talk to you about that thing. But the housekeeping is when you agree to do it. So I'm trying to think of one that I've done recently. I did one about a year. Someone who started a YouTube channel in their 50s. I thought, well, that's me. So all I said was, can you say I'm Fiona Scott of Scott Media, please? That's the housekeeping. That's the sales bit. And then I started talking about tips for starting a YouTube channel and what kind of kit you need. Okay, so stop thinking that national press are going to do a whole load of pink puff on your business. They're not, but they will talk about you. And most national journalists live somewhere and they've come up through local press, local radio, local telly to write at national level. And when they're looking for case studies, they're going to revert to what they know, and that will be their contacts book and the area in which they live. So these are just human beings writing, and I'm not going to get into a moral debate about national journalists and national media, though I will say this. If you are on your social media slagging off the media all the time, and on the other hand, wanting them to write about you, forget it. Just forget it, because they won't. Because these are people that you are engaging with, and you can insult them as much as anything else. So if you are that person who wants to slag off the media, publicity probably isn't part of your PR.
That's perhaps a bit of a wake up call for me. If I look at some of my historic Facebook posts about a couple of national newspapers, but it's a really worthwhile thing to think about, isn't it? Because I've found exactly what you're talking about. That the journalists that I've been in touch with, mainly through Twitter, is where I've found most journalists hang out, and I know there's Facebook groups and that sort of thing. But yeah, like you say, they've just been normal people like me working out of their back bedroom who are freelance for several newspapers. But as a result of doing that and engaging with them, I've been quoted in the Telegraph, the Guardian, and most recently the national newspaper, the national magazine for opticians. But opticians are small business owners. They could easily be, they could easily be clients of mine as well. Something that Grace Gitz just said is that this week they commented on an article by an international speaker that led to a conversation, and Grace Gitz are now booked to be on their podcast. That's worked really well for me as well, actually engaging with some of the people that you'd like to speak with, engaging with them before you've ever got a story for them. Is that something that you recommend as well?
Yeah, always. It's as important to engage as it is to post your stuff. It's not broadcast media. It's not Stefan Thomas media or Fiona Scott media, it's social media. So it's about social engagement. And Grace Gitz did a good thing there, because they engaged and they kept that conversation going. So it's come to that kind of conclusion. So I'll often say to people, I used to, when Twitter was such a big thing, but it could be TikTok or Instagram today, know when to take that conversation generally from social media to an email, maybe to a phone call or Zoom, face to face. You've got to recognize those buy-in signals where you can take things to a different level, and that might be very gentle, it might be very quick, it might be a slow burn. It depends who you're talking to. But yeah, engage. And if I find someone, I mean, particularly at the moment, I'd love to work with a business that works with animals, because animals make great stories, and not a charity who wants everything for free. That's what I'd love to do. So how do I do that? Maybe I find 5 businesses that work with animals in my community. So that would include maybe Oxford or Wiltshire or Berkshire, because I'm close to all of them. And I start following them and share their stuff. And I know over time, one of them will use my services. It is an inevitability, but I'm not selling to them. We're not even having that conversation. I'm just following and retweeting them, because in my mind is a goal of, I want to work with a business that works with animals, because animals make great stories and I know I can really help them and make them very visible. And I've always applied that very minor strategy, but been very clear about the type of client I want that would fill a gap that I've got in my business. And I'm just incredibly lucky now that I've got very few gaps, so I can be really choosy.
I do just love the fact that you and I just talk so much the same language, because I hate to admit that I'm this strategic, but there is a particular business that I'm keen to work with at the moment, and I've been engaging on a load of their posts and a load of their people's posts as well, and some of them are now coming back and engaging on my stuff and paying a bit of attention to me, because I know that business has an annual conference which I'd be really interested to speak at. So I've been doing that. I've been engaging with them, like really engaging with them. I've been buying their services as well. I've been really engaging with this business. Now they're paying a bit of attention to me, and it's working. And the other thing that you said, I talk about gateways, I talk about networking and social media, and I know Adrian Chase is paying attention to us this morning. I know that Adrian gets this as well. That all of this stuff is a gateway to the next conversation. I think too many people rely on just the social media and the media to do all of the work for them, but you have to use that opportunity to then, as you've said, take that conversation to the next level, whether that's phone, Zoom, or face to face. I think that's something that people forget as well, that this stuff is the bit that leads to the conversation. It's not the whole of the conversation, is it?
No, and I just think social media. I was asked yesterday, has PR changed over the 15 years of you've been doing it? And actually, no, it's all about storytelling and getting people out there and visibility generally. But what's changed are the tools and the methods. We have more opportunity to engage. The downside of that, of course, is that you can try lots of different things and be very scattergun and not achieve very much, and you don't give it long enough time. And that's why I think just narrowing your field of focus when it comes to PR or marketing and working on that and making that work to a place where you think, yeah, that's working, that's whirring away nicely before you add in different things, is more effective than trying to be on, I'm going to be on YouTube and TikTok, I'm going to be on Instagram, I'm going to be on Facebook. Yeah, fine, that will become your full-time job then.
Oh, and for some people that is a full-time job or a side
Yeah.
hustle. I know people who, and I'm sure Grace gets do as well. I know people who monetize just their content, including someone pretty close to me who gets sent a ton of free stuff all the time. And a member of my family as well. Adrian is on a podcast with Nikki Marshall on the 6th of September.
Good.
We'll look out for that, Adrian. If you've just joined us, and it's great to see people who are here this morning engaging with us. If you've just joined us, I've gone and done that again. That's what I meant to do. Put Fiona's LinkedIn up there. If you're not connected with Fiona already, you really should be. So go and check Fiona out and connect with her. She puts a load of really useful stuff, just like Fiona is this morning. Fiona posts a ton of really useful stuff on her LinkedIn. If you've got any questions about PR, put them in the comments below. We'll try and answer them whilst we're here. I'm really loving all of the engagement that we're already getting from the people watching us this morning. That's us back. So you've got the event coming up. We've talked about the basics of having the foundations in place, making sure you've got a website, making sure that you've got your social profiles there. We've talked about looking at the goals that people have and sort of reverse engineering from those goals. What else should people be doing at the moment, apart from coming to your event? What else should people be doing at the moment to plan for their PR in 2023?
Okay, well, most people that will be listening to this won't even have a plan. They won't even think strategically about dealing with the media. Um, but actually, you really should. All of my clients, well, my training clients do it, or I do it for them. Okay, the first thing to do is look at your diary for 2023. Okay, what are you doing that's already in the diary that you know is going to happen? Okay, that you can get out there. That you can get out there, and that might be to the media, it might be a series of blogs, it might be a series of social media posts, or it might be a combination of all of those things. So it might be you're running an event, you're raising money for charity, you're moving to new premises, you're employing a new apprentice, you are, offering a new service or product. Now, some of those things stray into advertising, but the media generally, particularly local media, still like to know what's going on. They might not choose to do a story on it, but it's great for them to know what's going on. The other thing you can look at is what things come out each year where you can have an opinion or you can comment on based on your lived experience or based upon your expertise, um, and or your products if you've got a product-based business. So for some businesses, Christmas is a really important time. Now Christmas comes every year. You can plan for that. You should be planning for it now, not in November. Okay, not in November, now, particularly with the media. And in fact, with most of the media and the magazines, Christmas 2022 is a year ago. So Christmas 2023 is now that you plan for it. So you know in your business what are important sales times for you. But it might be that you could plan a series of blogs on how to eat healthily at Christmas. I mean, I don't know. It depends what your expertise is. You have to apply the story to your expertise and, what you want to talk about. Um, and I'd be amazed if the people listening here couldn't come up with at least 3 or 4 stories, 3 or 4 comments or opinions around those things. The other thing is there are certain themes that are going to come out in 2023. And on my own podcast, which I'm going to give it a plug, it's called PR Not BS with Fiona Scott. I only started it a year ago, and the most popular one with the most popular downloads so far, amazingly, I assumed it would be the podcast I actually did with journalists, particularly the national journalists. In fact, it's the one where I gave my PR predictions for 2022. So I've just recorded my PR predictions for 2023.
There you
And
go. There's the
sorry, there you
podcast
go.
up on screen for people to
Yeah,
go and find it.
that's right. Yeah, you can go and find it. It's in all the usual places. Um, And there are a few things, I'll just pick a few out for you that I think are going to come up again and again. And it's these themes which will allow you to engage often with national journalists if you're following them. And if you want to follow them quick and easy, it's Twitter, Twitter, Twitter all the way. Okay, because that's where most journalists sit. If you don't like Twitter, tough, they aren't going to move to where you are. That's where they're going to be. So I would say 3 big things that are going to come up: cost of living crisis, and everything that flows from that is going to be a big thing. So if you can come up with hacks and tips about how to do that, I would urge you not to be too negative, but to offer positive solutions or your experience of that, how it's affecting your business, how you're dealing with it or not dealing with it. That's going to keep coming up. That's going to be a big thing. I'm not saying you have to make political commentary on this. I want you to have in your mindset, humble and grateful. How can I help others by sharing my knowledge or experience? But make sure in any blog or anything you do the housekeeping. And the housekeeping is this: Fiona Scott of Scott Media. Oh, can I have a web link there? It'd be great if I could. Here's the web link. That's the housekeeping. That's the sales message. Hope that makes sense. Okay, green and sustainability. Anything green is going to be big news and continue to be. All around climate crisis, climate emergency. But the need for businesses to be sustainable is going to be huge. Corporations are being pushed heavily to move towards net zero. They will want their supply chains to be as sustainable and prove they're sustainable as possible. So if you are in that kind of place, if you are supplying to a bigger company, you need to be talking about your green credentials often, or your movement towards sustainability. And the other thing I would say about that, be careful of greenwashing. Don't say, oh, wow, for everything I do, I plant a tree. Well, most trees don't survive to adulthood. So actually, you'll be shouted down for greenwashing. So don't come out with absolutes. I'm a totally 100% green company unless you've been independently verified of such by a third party. It's like saying you're the UK's number one this just because you've decided you are, and it's not independently verified. You'll end up being vilified. So don't do that. So green. And the third thing I think that's going to come up a lot more is well-being. General well-being and mental health is going to continue to be a big theme. Those are just 3. I've actually come up with 10, but you'll have to listen to the podcast to hear all of those.
I know your client and our mutual friend Taz Thornton talks a lot about mental wellness as well, and that is a huge subject. I mean, in my world, we have things like International Networking Week where I could talk about, and if anyone at all is questioning this, back in 2001 or 2002, there or thereabouts, when I was still an estate agent here locally, I got a newspaper article with a photo of me sat with my laptop actually on Church Green in Whitney, because we had embraced cloud technology. It wasn't called cloud technology at the time, but we got a shout out in the main pages of the local newspaper for our estate agency just because we were using Wi-Fi, basically. But it actually made news. Someone put up a photo of me sat outside the office with my laptop and a little story about how we were using this new technology. And it is just sometimes like literally thinking outside the box a little bit on that, isn't it, Fiona? About what can be. I think the greenwashing term you used, but thinking about what people can actually is innovative about their business or different, which might make a story if they hit the journalist at the right time.
Yeah. Or you can become a case study, an example of someone doing that thing. There's all the awareness days that goes on in awareness months, and I'm actually designing a planner for this myself, which will go live for 2023 to help people with this. And you might think, oh, like it's Love Your Accountant Day today, by the way, just saying.
And GCSE results day, as
course,
Grey Skits have just pointed out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a post on GCSE results and A-level results last year that, it got quite a lot of attraction last year, but it was thrown up by Facebook again this year. And it's got more traction this year and it's last year's post. So I think the one thing about marketing and PR that you need to remember is loads of invisible people are watching you and they are hugely valuable, and you have to trust that. You just have to trust it, because sometimes people will suddenly out of the blue and contact you. I remember being contacted by a big company via Facebook on a bank holiday Monday via direct message. I'd never met them. I had no idea who this person was. And they were having a massive crisis management problem within their business. By the Monday, I was talking to their board on a consultancy basis, earning a lot of money because I had to stop everything I was doing in order to deal with their crisis. And that came through a Facebook connection. So the value, I cannot stress to you enough, but you need to do the donkey work. You have to be on the day there on the days when it's hard, when you think nobody is listening, nobody cares, because they are. And that's how you build, one way of how you build a business. But equally, I like to go out and about and meet people. It's one of the reasons I hold some of my training sessions in person. I want to see you. I want to connect with you. I want to, I want to feel that. I want to feel what you feel for your business or your organization or your charity. I want to say to you, yeah, that's a story that'll work brilliantly for the media. How do we write that? No, that's a blog post. Or, oh, you're going to have that. I reckon that might go national. Right. If that goes national, there are 4 blog posts you can do around that to make the most of it. And this is where you put them out. That's the kind of way I think. I think of stories as almost like a spider web of things that work together. Oh, that's what I do in my PR planning. Anyway, so start with your diary. What's going to happen anyway in the ebb and flow of the year that you can piggyback? What might be some themes that you can be blogging about that make you very present for those themes that are going to keep coming up? And also then I'll do strategically some stuff about, okay, for 2023, let's identify some journalists you can follow. So we'll talk a lot about Twitter, we'll talk a lot about Facebook and places you can hang out so you see, and don't try and be everything to every journalist. We'll pick 2 or 3 that you follow and engage with because you want to be on this morning sofa eventually. And that's the key thing, eventually. And you want to be talking to Jill Foster, who writes across the Women's Press, or you want to be talking to Sam Brick, who also writes across the Women's Press and a lot in the sort of like blind date space. And, journalists have specialisms, and you'll start to learn this when you started to engage with them properly.
Well, that's coincidental because it was Sam Brick that Sharon and I ended up talking to after the last time I did a session with you. There you go. We ended up talking to her a little bit and are still in touch. The story didn't work for that particular paper, but we're still in touch with her, and that relationship will go somewhere because Sharon and I got married in our 50s and put 5 kids together and that sort of thing. So that's the sort of thing that Sam talks about. I know. I'm going to put this back on screen for a second because if you actually want to work with Fiona one-to-one, this is how you one-to-one in person. This is how you can work with Fiona. She's got Powerful PR Planning for 2023 coming up. Actually, a face-to-face event, which is on November the 9th. That's what I was looking for. And I also remembered rightly that the early bird price is £120 plus VAT. And there will be a maximum of 20 people for the day. So yeah, you'll get some proper attention from Fiona. I've already popped the link to that in the comments here. So if you're interested in working with Fiona, go and check that out. And if you want to follow Fiona on LinkedIn, and you really should, and you're watching this, then go and check out Fiona's LinkedIn profile there. And Adrian makes the point that emotional connection is a great thing, which I know it's a point that you get so much, Adrian, but that's one of the ways that I've got speaking gigs, Fiona, is people say we felt like we already knew you because I put so much content out there, including this. Even though I'm talking to you, it's introduced me to our new best friends at Grey Skits, for example.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
even
exactly.
this is a piece of content for me. And the way that I got the speaking gig that I've just been booked for the 3rd time is by running a free networking event for the local businesses here in Witney, without expectation that would actually turn into business for me, although it did, and it did for some of the other people who came along as well. But that was all the opportunities for people to form that emotional connection with me, to feel like they already knew me because they'd seen me in a Zoom networking environment whilst we couldn't go out and meet each other. But that emotional connection led people to feel like they already know me. We're only going to be here for another few minutes, so if you've got any questions, do pop them in the comments below, even if you're watching on replay, because I'll tag Fiona if anyone's got any questions after this. Anything else that you'd like to say to people, Fiona? Any other fundamentals which you'd like to get across today that people should hear, or your top tips, or whatever it happens to be, to wrap up our conversation?
What I'd say is publicity and working with the media, though, it's not just about getting your business out there. It has other benefits that are really important now in the economy we've got. It enables you to show whether your business has ethics and purpose. I've touched on that with green and sustainability. And the reason that's important is we have, well, particularly in Swindon and Wiltshire and across the whole of the Southwest, we have a huge issue with recruitment of staff. It's huge, not getting staff. And younger staff particularly coming through are looking for different things than my generation. They're not just looking for salary. They're looking for work-life balance. They're looking to work with companies that are purposeful and ethical. And how are people going to know that your business is that thing unless you tell them and you show them through real world examples? So actually it does help with recruitment and retention. And I'm talking with a really big company. I'm talking thousands of employees at the moment that has never done any PR because their route to market for the product that they produce, which obviously I'm not going to say what it is very limited. There are 2 or 3 massive global customers that buy from them. But in order to fulfill those orders, they need staff. And that is a huge problem for them at the moment. And they're embracing PR for publicity for the first time. They've always felt they were safe. And this is a company most people will have never heard of. It employs thousands of people. So PR fulfills other things other than getting your name out there, getting your brand out there, brand awareness. It can help with recruitment and connection. And Adrian is quite right. Emotion is key in almost everything we do. I mean, you would know, being an estate agent previously, Steph, People go into a house and they'll often use emotional language. Oh, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. It doesn't give me that right feel. Oh, I loved it straight away. And often that emotional connection will override any kind of practical considerations, like I want it to have 4 bedrooms or a big garden, or I want it to be near that school, or whatever it might be. Emotions will win almost every time. And in fact, in my favorite ever selling book, it says we buy emotionally, we justify intellectually. And I think that's largely true.
Absolutely so, and something that I talk about so much is that putting all of this stuff out there that I do isn't to persuade people to like me, it's to give the right people the opportunity to decide whether they like me or not. And if going back right to the top of this conversation, that if I was invisible, I wouldn't be giving people that opportunity. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you ever so much for being here. Sharon has really loved listening to you, as I know Sharon always
Thanks,
does.
Sharon.
And we've Adrian and Grace Skits, as well as the other people who've been here, but Adrian, Chase and Grace Skits, thanks for all your engagement. I've really enjoyed engaging with you this morning, and I'm sure I'll make sure that we are connected, Grace Skits. Loving your work from what Fiona's shown me this morning.
Yeah,
Thank you.
everyone should follow Grey Skits. If you want to do TikTok, learn from someone who's doing it better than you.
It's yeah, absolutely. So TikTok was something that I heard about a few years ago from Gary V, I think probably, but I've never adopted it myself, Grey Skits.
Oh, it's my utter guilty pleasure. I just love it. I love TikTok.
It's because I think I'm too old, and I'm
What a load of
52.
old
That's
rubbish.
the
That's
thing. That's
rubbish.
the
That's rubbish. That's an excuse.
yeah,
I'm older
probably.
than you.
On that bombshell, Adrian has said, I've really enjoyed it, Adrian. I've really enjoyed you being involved in it. So thank you very much. I think after my tiny little cock up earlier, there's only one way to finish today. Thank you ever so much, Fiona. It's been amazing speaking to you. I'm going to press the button now to cut us off, and I'm